The offseason seemed promising for the Cleveland Browns. Then the 2018 NFL Draft happened. Cleveland was once again the unfortunate center of attention after achieving legendary levels of futility. They responded with a bounty of players that left several Cleveland fans not cheering or booing, but standing with their arms stuck in a semi-permanent shrug, temporarily forgetting every word in the English language except what? Let's break this down. It would be easier to list the areas the Browns didn't need help than where they did. Punter, defensive line, linebacker, and every part of the offensive line except left tackle. Not saying these positions are a lock for several years, just that they aren't an immediate need. Quarterback was the most glaring weakness, and they addressed it by picking Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield first overall. His strengths right now are basically what Deshaun Kaiser's weren't. He's an accurate passer who can make throws on time, to the right receiver, and throw at different trajectories and velocities as needed. His deficiencies have a chance to be ironed out, or at least better compensated for, by sitting behind not one, but two veteran quarterbacks. As for the comparisons to Manziel, here's what the two of them have in common. Both are Heisman Trophy winners, both played in the Big 12, both were drafted by the Browns, both were labeled as quote-unquote gunslingers. That can be positive or negative depending on if you remember Brett Favre winning a Super Bowl or throwing a completely unnecessary interception to cost his team a trip to the Super Bowl. Both are athletic and mobile, able to get out of the pocket and make throws on the run. However, the ones that seem to get the most focus are maturity and trouble with the law. I can't say with a straight face that Mayfield doesn't have some growing up to do, but to my knowledge he doesn't go out partying. In fact, his high school teammates said he would go home and play Halo instead of party after games. He doesn't nearly have as many problems with alcoholism and shows a willingness to learn both by applying himself and by not skipping out on practices to the resentment of everyone else on the team. Ultimately, we won't know for sure how good or bad this pick is until a few years off. Quarterbacks are notoriously hard to evaluate. And if you want a good laugh, go look up clips of Mel Kiper Jr. bashing teams for not drafting such surefire prospects as Trent Dilfer, Andre Ware, Jamarcus Russell, or Jimmy Clausen. Improving the quarterback situation from last year should be an expectation, not an accomplishment. Both free agent quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor and Drew Stanton, are easily a step up from a rookie rushed on the field who dished out more turnovers than every Arby's in a 50-mile radius. All I need to do to show my feelings on the Browns picking the flag-planting, jock-grabbing aficionado is play the clip of an official Browns draft party reaction. The recap video on the Browns official site edited this to just show a couple close-up shots of people cheering, and not everyone else giving the 1,000-yard stare to the broadcast. Even considering quarterbacks are hard to evaluate, you'd think Cleveland's general managers can hit on one in the past 10 years or so. Brian Hoyer might be the closest thing they've had to a decent starter, which, well, I could make an entire video on how sad that was. We knew whoever the Browns drafted would more than likely sit, so why not get someone with a higher upside like Josh Allen, or someone better evaluated like Rosen or Darnold? Mayfield has taken so few snaps under center I can count them on two hands. He's only done it 7 times. So why, with a team that traditionally does better rushing the ball or using play action to free up passing targets, would you draft him? His size is also a concern, being around 6 feet tall when most better quarterbacks are at least a few inches taller. Drew Brees and Russell Wilson are the exceptions, not the rule. It's also something else he has in common with Manziel. Both are undersized. He's going to be on his best behavior through training camp, assuming he doesn't somehow end up in Arkansas drunk off his ass again, but I'm waiting with bated breath for when he does well in a preseason game or two and people clamor for him to be the starter. Remember Brandon Weeden and Deshaun Kaiser, guys? Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The defense last year was often put in awful positions by turnovers and exploited through the air. Opponents had an average starting position of their own 30.5-yard line. To put that in perspective, that would have ranked as the 3rd best starting field position in the league. The passing defense gave up the 6th most passing touchdowns and the 7th most net yards per attempt. Meanwhile, the rushing defense finished 2nd in the NFL for fewest yards per rush and 7th in rushing yards per game. So it makes sense that they went for Denzel Ward, a defensive back whose strong suit is sticking to receivers and not allowing separation. He can play man, he can play zone, and he can step in right away and contribute. Browns fans might be getting flashbacks to another highly touted defensive back they drafted only 4 years ago, Justin Gilbert. He was so good the Browns traded him to the Steelers for a 6th-round pick. I repeat, the Browns traded him to a division rival. He was then released and managed to get a 1-year suspension while he was still a free agent. Ward's issues aren't with technique, but with him getting bullied around the field by bigger, taller receivers. He's not going to win any jump balls unless Brandon Weeden is trying to throw them. The team just acquired some veteran players for the secondary, so the worst thing to do would be immediately put him in as the number 1 or 2 corner and get roughed up by other team starters. While running back wasn't a huge concern, even with Crowell leaving, it was nice to see the Browns pick up Nick Chubb, part of that two-headed running attack Georgia rode to a national title game. Duke Johnson is more of a receiving option, and Carl Hyde is more of a between-the-tackles runner, but if his injury concerns come to fruition, Chubb can step in and take some reps with Johnson. And days if the coach thinks he's good to go. Even better, he's complemented by lineman Austin Corbett, a former teammate of current Browns guard Joe Bitonio. He's experienced at center, guard, and tackle, so if he ends up beating Sean Coleman for the starting job, they have some chemistry already in place on the line. Chubb spent most of rookie camp pass blocking and catching passes, precisely because he didn't do that much or effectively in college. And it's weird to think of him as a backup if Hyde gets hurt, considering Chubb had a knee injury in 2015 so bad it nearly ended his NFL career before it started. It's admirable he came back from that, but it's a huge red flag for how long he can last at a position that already has a short shelf life. As for Corbett, let's get one thing straight. No one's coming close to filling the shoes of Joe Thomas. And Corbett being an old teammate of Bitonio doesn't matter because he has to adjust to multiple positions in a different offense with different coaches, a different line, and a different signal caller. The rest of the draft included a lot of potential diamond-in-the-rough type picks, as you might expect. Chad Thomas can contribute as a rotational player for the defensive line. The same goes for Gennard Avery with the linebacking core. Antonio Callaway has ridiculous speed and can make people miss either as a receiver or returner. Damian Ratley gives the Browns another deep ball threat, and Simeon Thomas is a nice safety net, pun not intended, in case he's needed at either safety position or to step in for nickel and dime coverage. Who the hell decided to draft Callaway? We heard the whole time about how drafting high character guys was important, and this is who they drafted? Callaway entered the NFL draft because he couldn't get reinstated or transfer after sitting out a year for involvement in a credit card fraud scheme. Before that, and a marijuana charge, he put his education to good use for his sexual assault trial by saying he was too stoned to have sex with anyone. If the idea is to have Josh Gordon be a role model to this guy, you better be damn sure Callaway doesn't end up knocking him off the straight and narrow. Keep his leash short. As for everyone else, it's a crapshoot. Thomas has the look of a D lineman, but not the know-how. Avery's strong, but he keeps trying to arm tackle everybody. Ratley's a bad route runner and he gets pushed around too much, and other Thomas is a safety who keeps getting fooled by whatever the offense is doing. In that regard, he's the Browns' version of Mike Mitchell. These guys need a lot of time to develop and will more than likely end up playing on special teams, assuming that they make the team at all.